Lincoln doesn't succeed because one sector succeeds. Lincoln succeeds because we focus on everyone as much as we can, and we find that balanced approach to make sure that Lincoln continues on the right path. And that's what I'm going to offer to voters over the next 4 years.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to The Dan Parsons Show. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. Coming up on today's show, the race for Lincoln City Council is getting exciting, with only days left before Lincolnites decide which 3 candidates out of 6 will be elected. Here's my interview with one of those candidates, incumbent City Councilman Tom Beckius. Enjoy.
The people decide. The voices impacting Lincoln. This is Election Coverage 2025 on The Dan Parsons Show.
Well, we are focusing on the Lincoln City elections this spring, including the race for City Council. After the primary, there are 6 candidates remaining for the 3 at-large seats on the Lincoln City Council. The May 6th general election is now less than a week away, and it's my pleasure to welcome back to the Dan Parsons Show, Lincoln City Councilman Tom Beckius. Tom, welcome back.
Dan, thanks for having me again. I certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. I guess technically this is your first time on the new podcast, but you were a regular guest on the radio show. So
That's right. And I think I appeared on one of your Punts in Politics, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you did, along with your colleagues. We did a 3-way that night. And last but certainly not least, Tom Beckius. And Tom trumps all of us, well, the two of you, because Tom was born and raised here in Lincoln.
I was.
Residency, bragging
41 years at this point, but
20, 30, 40.
but 0 on City Council. So
Yeah.
soon. We'll see.
Yes. We hope. Let's fix that.
Well, I tell you what, I have a lot of people tell me, Tom, how much they miss Pints in Politics, because in this new format, we don't get to drink beer together.
Oh, what's wrong with this format? I think you need to reconsider what's going on here, Dave.
I know it. Whose idea was this? Well, this is a lot more convenient. But anyway, Tom is running for his 2nd term on the council. He was first elected in 2021. And Tom, maybe, and we're going to get to some fun questions here before we get into the meat of this, but maybe just give our audience a little, what are you maybe most proud of in the past 4 years of your work on the council?
You know, the work that I'm most proud of, Dan, is actually the work that was probably the hardest. And that was trying to build coalitions when we had really tough issues in front of us. And we've had a few. We've had a handful over the last 4 years. But working with trying to forge a path forward, even though oftentimes that doesn't make everyone happy, that's really been sort of the most rewarding work that I've had on council, but also sometimes the hardest work I've ever done in my working life.
Yeah, that's well put. As a way for our listeners and viewers to get to know our guests, our producers have come up with 4 questions that we're asking everyone. And so we call it, and then you get to ask me one. So we call it Dan's 4 and you're 1. So
okay, let's get
ready. Question number 1, where did you grow up?
I'm Lincoln. I'm Lincoln through and through. So born and raised here in Lincoln, born at St. Elizabeth Hospital. And I'm a proud product of Lincoln Public Schools. I went to Holmes Elementary School and left their it was junior high then, middle school now. And Southeast, I'm a Southeast grad, and then I'm a graduate of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Husker. And then before then, actually, I was lucky enough to attend Trinity Childcare at Trinity Methodist at 16th and A Street, and that's where I went to what we would call early childhood education now, daycare, and then actually went through kindergarten there as well. And it was just across the alley from where I grew up. So it was very much in my neighborhood there in the near South neighborhood. And so, yeah, I'm from Lincoln, and what I tell people a lot is this is kind of my way of community service to the community that helped raise me and the community that I love. So this is how I give back, being able to help guide decision making in our city and kind of keep it the city that I grew up in, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes sense. Yeah, deep roots. Okay, question number 2.
Yeah.
As were growing up as a kid here in Lincoln, what was your dream job?
Oh, well, I grew up in the very early 80s, Dan, and MTV was huge. And of course, I wanted to be a pop star. I mean, that's
Nice.
that's what every kid wanted to be when we finally got MTV at our house and we were able to watch it. But I can't sing. I have a face for radio, and so these were not things that were going to work out in real life. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to be on MTV. I thought that was the pinnacle of what you wanted to do in life. So,
Well, this is going to date me because I'm quite a bit older than you. But so MTV came to life. I was in college by the time in the early 80s. And so I remember, man, we'd get out of class and of course we didn't have any electronic devices on us. So we'd get out of class and we'd rush into somebody's room for a premiere of a video. That's back when they actually had music videos on
right,
TV.
right.
So
I remember being a kid, because we had the big console television, wrapped in wood or what have you that sat on the floor. But I remember being a kid hiding behind a recliner in our living room because I was so scared of the video Thriller. It scared me like you couldn't believe.
Yeah.
But I was probably 4 or them. So it was pretty scary. I mean, Michael Jackson turning into a werewolf. To a 4-year-old, that's scary stuff.
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. Okay, question number 3.
Yeah.
And answer this any way you like, Tom. I get all kinds of various answers to this question, so feel free to answer it any way you like. But the question is, the most famous person you've ever met?
So I've met some, being in the political world, you meet some politicians that are pretty well known. I've had the opportunity to meet, like a lot of Nebraskans, Tim Walz. Had the opportunity to meet last year Pete Buttigieg, which was great. But kind of the when I was also a young kid in the 80s, I had the opportunity to meet Florence Henderson as a kid, and once again, because of kind of that pop culture 80s thing that was going on. Brady Bunch reruns from the 70s were so keen, and the mother of America's most famous 1970s family. So
that's
as
cool.
A kid that stood out. So I'm going to go with Florence Henderson because why not?
I love it. That's up there towards some of the best answers I've gotten so far, Tom. That's cool. Okay, the last of these fun questions for you, and then you get to fire one back at me. What was the very first concert you attended?
Okay, so this is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's the truth. My mom took me to a Kenny G concert at the Pershing Auditorium. And I had to have been like 8 or 9, something like that. I thought it was just cool to go see a concert.
Yeah.
And my mom got, I for some reason, I in my head, I have it that she got a glass of wine and she sat there and listened to Kenny G and had a glass of wine. And that was my first concert. But to also answer that, when I was 15, I was able to go to Edge Fest. And that was kind of the first concert that I went to that I got to pick.
Okay.
And that was Edge radio station up in Omaha. They had Edge Fest. It was outside. It was a festival. I don't know that at 15 I should have been going to that, but a bunch of my friends and I, we went to that and saw some bands there. And that was kind of the first concert that I kind of got to pick that I got to attend. So it was fun. It was fun. I'm not sure kids at 15 should be going to those concerts, but I did. So
hey, You were better off probably because you went and expanded your horizon.
It was more independent and experienced, probably.
Darn right. Darn right.
Yeah.
Okay, you get to fire one back at me. Anything you like.
Okay. So you and I are both kind of foodies a little bit, and we'll run into each other from time to time at restaurants. I want to know, what is the best meal you have ever had?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Well, gee whiz.
And I know that's going to be a hard one because I know you've had a lot of really good ones.
Here's the most unique and memorable. Some people in town, we haven't known each other this long time. Well, maybe we have. Anyway, I started Lincoln Secret Supper here in Lincoln.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And so I've kind of been drawn to those kind of secret, small little dinner parties. So I got to go to an event like that for my 60th birthday a few years ago in Paris. And it was a chef and it was just kind of around just ending the pandemic. And so this gentleman had a restaurant that he had closed because obviously, but he was doing small dinners above and then an apartment above his restaurant.
Okay.
And so there were probably, I don't know, 20, 25 people at this restaurant or at this dinner party. And I couldn't tell you exactly what the food was. It was fabulous, but it doesn't get much better than that. Your 60th birthday at a private dinner party in Paris.
Yeah. So was the chef preparing stuff like on a residential stove and
yeah,
like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that elevates it to another skill set in terms of being able to function on that kind of those kind of products as opposed to a commercial kitchen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. He had it down. It was, and he was delightful. He'd come out and I have this fabulous picture. So anyway, that's my most memorable meal. I've had many, but that one kind of sticks out. Thanks for asking, Tom. Yeah, we do. And Lincoln continues to diversify, and the food scene just keeps getting better. So
yeah, it does.
I'm proud of our city. Okay, well, we are partnering with Flatwater Free Press and Civic, Nebraska on their voter guide project. We are sharing these episodes, these podcast interviews with them so they can include them in their voter guide. So here are a couple of those questions, Tom, that I'm asking everyone. Question number one, what is the most pressing issue facing the city of Lincoln and its residents? And if reelected, how would you address it?
Well, I think we got a few pressing issues. I think generally speaking, you can't talk to any constituent today and really for the past year without talking about issues around affordability. Doesn't matter what facet of life we're talking about, everyone's experiencing those sorts of inflationary impacts. And you feel it, I feel it, and it's real. And there's not a whole heck of a lot that I can do as a city council member to impact the price of eggs, for example. But there is work that we can do, that we have been doing, and that we'll need to continue to do to impact things like the price of housing. And that's not unfortunately necessarily a short-term solution, but rather a longer-term solution in terms of how do we incentivize the development of more dense housing product? How do we make sure that we're updating zoning codes appropriately to allow for not only the types of housing that people want to live in, but also the types of housing that are good for municipalities? I mean, I think sometimes what gets lost in the discussion is infrastructure costs money, not only when you put it into the ground. I'm talking water, sewer, roads, but it also costs money to maintain over the decades and decades of its useful life. So, when we talk about building physically building a city that allows for the eventual reduction of a property levy or a property tax levy, that means that we really need to be smart about how we're constructing the city and making sure that when we can get density into a housing development, that we really are flexing that muscle as strongly as we can. Because what we know is, we're starting to see students being very willing to live in high dense housing units. Of course, we've seen renters being willing to live in higher density housing units in order to keep housing costs low. But we're also starting to see, seniors being really willing to explore different housing types as well. Those sorts of densities really create the opportunities to help in a long term lower our property tax levy, while still recognizing that, hey, we're in Lincoln, Nebraska, and a lot of people want to live in single family houses on single family lots. I do, and a lot of other people do. That's not abnormal, and I think that's cultural to how we live generally. And I don't know that that's going away in a radical way, but being able to recognize those efficiencies where we can, I think, are really important. And then, I think when it comes to those sorts of affordability things, we really need to also look a little further upstream and say, what is it that we can do to get you more income? And on the local level, there are things that we can do to help people reskill or upskill themselves to get more income coming into the household. That is, if we can get you more income, that is a direct attack against some of the inflation that we've been seeing. In the last couple of years, the city of Lincoln has upskilled 1,400 workers. That's stuff I'm really proud of, Dan. I mean,
Absolutely.
That's the kind of change that you can make with an individual that impacts their family, impacts the trajectory of their children. I mean, those are sorts of those monumental things that you can do. And in the last couple of years, like I said, 1,400 people in all sorts of different professions, whether we're talking about healthcare, a couple hundred people that have gotten some healthcare credentialing that they didn't have before, to commercial truck drivers. Sorts of those higher paid skill sets that if you can just take a little bit of time and train people up, it can really change the impact of their life. And those are some of the changes that I've been super proud of for the last 4 years.
Yeah, well, and those are examples, Tom, of lifting up the entire community, and
and the impact that those people then have, on their peers, on their children. If it impacts generational wealth, the ability to buy a home and kind of achieve that American dream, those are the kind of things that we want to see. And that's what I think people are still struggling with, is how do I forge a path forward right now when we're kind of living in this time that's tough and maybe a little uncertain too.
Yeah, very good. Another question from the voter guide. Lincoln's economy has diversified recently, but challenges remain in attracting businesses and retaining skilled workers. What strategies will you pursue to address these challenges?
I think that some of the work that we started, just like I was talking about with some of the ARPA funds that we had, the American Rescue Plan funds that we had to upskill workers, remain. I think those have to remain over the next 4 years. But I think also we need to take a clear look and see what it is that a modern worker wants from their community. And there's a whole host of things, right? Housing affordability comes into play when workers decide am I staying or am I going? One of the huge benefits we have living and working here in Lincoln is that we have thousands of students downtown every day that have to make a decision when it comes time for them to graduate, where they're going to be. And I think the question becomes is, how does Lincoln, if we're not there already, how do we get to the number one spot of where that student, but eventual worker locates? And when I'm 22, 23 years old, I'm not thinking about things like, what's my tax rate? Or even how much do I pay in rent necessarily. I think the question becomes, what's the city I want to live in? What seems fun? where can I get a decent job and make rent? Maybe I'm not even thinking so far about saving up for a house. Maybe I'm not thinking about, whether or not I can rent an apartment by myself. Maybe I'm so good living with my buddy and being roommates for a few more years, right? But I think that a large part of this discussion is, how do you create a city that young professionals want to be in?
Yeah.
How do you create a city that's vibrant and has the culture that's attracting people? Because as you know, we've talked about this. We have a deficit in some ways. We don't have really cool mountains that people want to go hiking on or ski down. And we don't necessarily have, beaches that people want to go visit and play volleyball on and lay about in the sun. And so what are the things that we can do to create that utopian kind of effect that draws workers and draws company? I mean, if you have, we have a labor shortage in the state of Nebraska, Lincoln included. We need more workers. And, I think one of our best exports, if you will, are these college educated kids that go elsewhere. And I think that if we can crack the nut as to how to keep more of them here, that only benefits all of us, including our businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Obviously they need people. And if we can create that atmosphere where all young people, college educated, not college educated, trades folk, people that are doing apprentices through unions, if we can figure out how to crack that nut and keep them here, that benefits us all. And I think that's a broader discussion about creating a cool city where people want to be.
Yeah. Well, just yesterday, the grand opening of the Music Box downtown. There's a great example under the leadership of the City Council and the Mayor's Office and the Downtown Lincoln Association. That is an example of an amenity that's going to be attractive to young people.
Right. I mean, I can remember very vividly, when I was a young professional here in Lincoln, I would spend some of my summer nights slinging beer at up downtowner events when they would have street festivals. I mean, Todd Ogden, the CEO of the Downtown Association, I met, I think, shutting down folding tables after one of the downtown music festivals and putting them away, at 1 o'clock in the morning, just as volunteers. Well, he was working, I was just a volunteer. But that sort of creating that sort of community, I think is vital, and making sure that Lincoln keeps recreating stuff that people want to do.
Yeah. Well put. Okay, we're about to the end here. In my business, and you've been in politics for a while, the elevator speech. Give us your elevator speech. Why should voters mark their ballots next week to return you to the City Council?
So thank you for the opportunity, Dan, first of all, for letting me come and speak. I really appreciate it. I think Lincoln's on a great path. I really do. I think that we are a well-balanced city that takes into consideration a whole host of issues. Yes, obviously public safety is a number one priority. And I have the support of the police union, the fire union, because they know that I support public safety and those policies that support them. We talk about roads, we talk about public health, we talk about creating parks and libraries that are attractive to the city of Lincoln. We talk about all of these things, but I think that what we really need to focus on is a really balanced approach for all of this. Lincoln doesn't succeed because one sector succeeds. Lincoln doesn't succeed because we only focus on roads and we only focus on public safety and we only focus on parks, for example. Lincoln succeeds because we focus on everyone as much as we can, and we find that balanced approach to make sure that Lincoln continues on the right path. And that's what I'm going to offer to voters over the next 4 years. I don't buy into this ideology that we need to necessarily cut a whole lot of departments and throw that money in one way or another way. I am a subscriber to a more balanced approach, and making sure that our city functions well. But it's more than just our city. Even though I'm just a city councilor, I also have to make sure that our businesses are functioning well, that our nonprofits are functioning well, our churches and our schools. Even though I'm not a school board member, we all have that's such an important stake in making sure that each one of our institutions across the city are performing well. And I will make sure that that happens, regardless of whether or not it's really my job to make sure it happens, because I think I'm an ambassador to the city of Lincoln. And it's my job to make sure that all of our stakeholders are running as well as they possibly can be. And if they're not, what is it that I can do as a city councilman to help? Because even though I might just be a voting member of a city board that oversees policy and budget for the city, I'm also a stakeholder in making sure everyone's successful. So that was longer than a 30-second elevator speech.
We were in New York. We were in a big building.
Very tall, very tall. So I apologize for that.
No. That's perfect. That's perfect. You're doing great. Okay. How does our audience learn more about Tom Beckius and your campaign?
Yeah, well, you can feel free to we'd love to have you visit our website. It's tomforlincoln.com. Not terribly inventive, but it's terribly easy to spell. TOMFOR Lincoln.com. That's probably the best way to learn about me. And then, the other thing is Lincoln is a small, we're a small city. We're a big town, small city. I don't exactly know what that means, but Lincoln's still the town the city where you can have coffee with the city council.
Darn right. You can bump into you once in a while. Yeah.
Drop me an email.
Yeah.
I'm always game for having coffee with constituents. And, I hope that accessibility will always remain in Lincoln, regardless of how big we get. So, lots of opportunities to get in touch. I'd love to meet folks. So
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, I appreciate your leadership. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I appreciate the hard work it is running for public office. And even though you've done it before, it's not a small task. So.
Well, I've never, this is actually, Dan, my first time having my regular job, sitting on city council and running for reelection.
Yeah.
And that's harder than I thought it was. It's way harder even than running 4 years ago for the first time, because I didn't have the work of city council that I was also doing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired. I'm not going to lie.
I don't doubt it. I see you out and about, and I know how
I'm looking forward to May 7th when I can take a nap.
There you go. Well, Tom Beckius, again, thanks for your time, and we'll be watching, and best of luck to you on May 6th.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much, Tom, for joining the show today, and best of luck in next week's election. Thanks to Chase Porter, who produced this episode. Penology Tech Solutions for their technical help and equipment. Kim Remington, Parsons Public Relations Director of Operations. And most importantly, thanks to each of you for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.